welcome to New and In Between, hosted by me, Mia Quinn Maddox, where I'll be discussing the hows and whys to my journey towards my faith. I've learned through my highs and lows that this path is not mine to travel alone. Join me mid journey as I embrace my wins, losses, and everything in between. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. So I know you saw the finale, but this is going to be our little bonus. Last week, we were supposed to have the guest that's going to be arriving shortly here, who is a dear friend of mine, also a colleague. I met Nicholas on the pilot of For Life. It's funny because I got hired by a supervisor that I work with a few times to do a pilot. And I usually just agree to the work. I don't care what the show is, who the actors are. It's a full-time job. I'm on it. It wasn't named yet. It was an untitled project. So when I started doing a little bit of research, I realized that the job was being executive produced by 50. 50, who is a former client of mine who I dressed for 12 years. It ended abruptly, and this is the first time now that there's maybe a opportunity, like that I might see him or I'm working under something of his name. So I stopped working for him in 2012, and I did this show in 2018, 19, 18 or 19. My timelines are always messed up because everything just goes. But either way, so I get on this pilot that's being executive produced by 50. All right, cool, no problem. This is where I meet Nicholas. Nicholas was number one on the show, and he was just cool. He was British. He was a black dude. For Life, if you guys don't know the show, it was a television show that was about this black guy who was wrongly accused, was sent to jail on drug charges. He became a lawyer in jail and ended up getting himself off, released from prison. But this show was about his journey in prison and him becoming a lawyer and how he fought a lot of cases for people who came to jail. It was a pretty dope show, But Nicholas was the main character. Aaron, yeah, Aaron. I don't remember the last name, but I remember Aaron. But anyways, his name was Aaron on the show, and basically I was the key costumer at that time. And what a key costumer does is basically I'm the person who maintains the continuity of the costume. So when you watch television, there's someone there who's watching to make sure that if I'm sitting like this and my bracelet is facing this way and my ring is kind of tilted and my shirt has a crease here, or there's hair people, you see how my hair is kind of off on this side. There's someone who's there to make sure that that happens all the time so that it maintains continuity when all the cuts and edits happen. So either way, so that's what I was doing on that job. And it's important for me to build a relationship with the actors that I work with, because then I know how to take care of them. Not only as a costumer are you maintaining the continuity of the costume and the maintenance of the costume, but you're also in someone's personal space when they are either having emotional scenes or when they are studying lines or they're in their own heads. So I like to learn the personality of the person so then I know when I could step in, when not to step in, if they like to be bothered at all. It just helps me with how I do my job. So this is how me and Nicholas first met. We worked together. And he was such a kind person. He was super cool. He was British. He was so handsome, but very just cool. There you go. Too fancy. Hi, Nicholas. Nicholas. And this is my dear friend, dear friend, Nicholas Pinnock. Hi, Nicholas.
How you doing?
Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's a
Thank
pleasure.
you for
Absolute pleasure.
coming. I know I was just explaining to everyone that they probably viewed, because last week we just did the finale, so I just did a recap. So we'll play that before this, and this will be our bonus episode.
Oh, nice.
Because I wanted people to understand friendship and how in friendship you have to have grace. And you have to understand your friends and when things happen and if they cancel and if they can't do something and if they say no, You cannot be mad and hold it against them and make the friendship all weird now because you're mad because they said no or they couldn't show up for you for something.
So
Because
true.
sometimes in friendships, people need their time. So that's why this is the bonus episode, because last week Nicholas was supposed to come and he needed some time. And I was okay with that. And we pivoted and we made it work.
We did
And
make it work.
I did the finale episode. My mom was here. My sister came.
Oh, nice.
My mother showed out as usual.
Yeah.
You know, she got starstruck off her own self on camera. It was the most interesting thing ever to see someone sit down and get starstruck off of themselves.
Fantastic.
But you know, it was cool and it worked out.
Good.
And now
I'm glad
you're
it did.
here.
I'm glad it did. But I really appreciate you giving me the time and space, because I wasn't at all in a good place to come and do this.
Yeah, and I know
And
that.
I didn't feel, because of the friendship that we have, I didn't feel in any way awkward about telling you, because I knew you'd understand. I wanted to be there. I really wanted to be there, but I also wanted to show up and be my best self for this, for you. And I knew that I wasn't able to do that on that day because life had just gotten too bad.
And I appreciate that, because sometimes life gets me and I push through.
Yeah.
And I push through. And then I don't give my best self. And then I'm beating myself up later Dad, I should have just said no, or I was nasty, or, you know, I was in a bad mood. I knew I should have just stayed home.
Yeah.
Instead of me just saying no, or I can't.
And sometimes you can push through. But I knew I had a long therapy session that day and I was exhausted. And I needed to sleep and I needed not to see anybody. And I knew that this was not going to be a good session, because I probably would have cried, or I probably would have, you know, I just wouldn't have been present for you.
Yeah.
And I needed that day, and I can't thank you enough for that.
Yeah, and it's cool. And I was like, look at that. I got a real friend.
Yeah. But that's when you understand that friendship, you know, we talk about emotional safety, and we talk about that in context of relationships for the most part, you know, intimate, sexual, you know, one-on-one couple relationships, you know, emotional safety. That's what, you know, whenever that term is mentioned, that's how it manifests itself. But people forget that, or we don't realize even, that emotional safety is not just about the relationship between, you know, a couple. It's emotional safety in friendships. It's emotional safety in family relationships. It's emotional safety at work. And those are, exactly, and those are far more important, or just as important, should I say. But we forget that. And so the emotional safety that we've built up over the, however many years that we've known each other.
When did we do For Life?
2008.
That was 18?
I think.
The pilot, yeah, we did 2018.
Yeah. So, you know, in that, some people may say short amount of time, but time is irrelevant when a connection is established.
Yeah, because I was just explaining to everyone, we met on For Life. I worked on the pilot. After the pilot, they got picked up for season 1. Nicholas requested me to take care of him solely. So basically, you could so as a costumer, you either take care of the whole cast, the ensemble, or you take care, if someone is requested someone personally for them, then you become a personal. And that's how me and Nicholas's relationship first began, as a work
because from the
relationship.
pilot, remember how, tell everybody how, what your thoughts about me from the pilot were that day.
I really, you know what's so crazy? I couldn't gauge you. Like, I was like, ooh, I'm like, no, he's not mean. Because you were so nice to everyone, but I just couldn't gauge you. And then I was like, oh, okay. It was weird because I couldn't really gauge you. I couldn't gauge you. But I didn't care if you spoke to me. I didn't care if you didn't speak to me. I knew that if he spoke and it was short, it's because he was in his head. And if he wasn't in his head, then he was fine. And he would speak a little bit and then maybe a little bit more and then maybe a little bit more.
But you picked up on that very quickly, because that's who I am, especially when you're, you know, surrounded by a whole bunch of people that you've never met before. I'm actually quite shy. And people take my shyness as distance or arrogance
or being
mean. But I'm busy looking at all the people in the room and gauging, because I'm feeling everybody's energies. I'm gauging, okay, whose energy is what today, and how do I feel about that, and how do I fit into that, and how can I manage that as best I can. And the reason I requested you was because you picked up on that instantly, and I knew that if there was someone that was going to look after me for the whole time, it'd have to be somebody who understood the intricacies of and the nuances of people's moods. And you read it really, really well.
Yeah, I was like, okay, he don't want to be bothered. I stand over there. When he wants to be bothered, I bother. I'm like, and that's just how it worked. And it's funny because I was explaining to people before you came in that this show is executive produced by 50, who I had not seen since the day our relationship ended abruptly.
Right.
So I had that nerve on my back, but I learned that from working with him.
Yeah.
He's a Cancer. He's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
But sometimes he just does not want to be bothered.
Yep.
And if he doesn't, it's not personal to me. I know I didn't do anything to
exactly.
him. All right, you don't want to be bothered? When you want to be bothered, I'll bother you.
Yeah.
And that's just how it worked. And I learned that from him. And I know, I'm like, ooh. And me too, I pick up on people's energy. I scan the room. Everyone says, oh, she's quiet or she's reserved. No, I'm studying everybody because everybody is not worthy of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to see who can I, okay, that person gets this kind of me in because I know that. But you were so kind. I was like, nah, he's super kind. He's feeling everybody out.
Yeah. And, the art of communication is knowing when not to speak sometimes too. And you can communicate.
Listen, people don't know that.
They don't understand. And you communicate without saying anything. And when you can do that and someone can understand that form of communication, it means the world because you don't feel like you have to constantly explain yourself and you constantly have to justify your position in the room because when people that you know, when people, your friends, your close circle, your family, and you create these family ships with people, that go beyond the friendship, it makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, because if you come in the morning, I could feel that you're not yourself. And if you're not, I don't need to ask you, are you okay?
Yeah.
Did something happen? What? No, you're processing that. Obviously, you don't want to talk. Okay, I'll be back.
Yeah. And it's also understanding that it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
And I find that when you find those people around you that don't take those moments personally, again, it's a lot easier to navigate because I find people so self-absorbed sometimes and so caught up in their own feelings that they, even without having done anything to justify me or anybody else just not wanting to speak for like 10, 15 minutes in the morning, they think it's personal to them. But that's on them, that's not on me. And I can't be responsible for how everybody reacts to how I'm being, even though, regardless of whether the intention is that or not. And I told you more than once, I think, that, I couldn't have done that show without you. The space that we shared in my dressing room was sacred. And that was the place where I could go and download and everything. I mean, the show was great, though. We had a great time.
No,
we
did.
There were never any...
Everyone who works on that show that I bump into says that Nicholas set the tone. He set the tone for the whole show. Everybody was just nice to each other. We all knew each other's names. All the departments got along. I mean, and if you didn't speak, it wasn't felt because everyone spoke.
Yeah.
But that was from you. You came in. He knew everyone's name. He spoke to everyone. And not just like little conversations, like real conversations.
Well, because it's important. We're all, in this industry, we're all doing our part to make whatever is on that screen the best that it can be. And one department's not more important than the other. We're all doing our bit as a collective because I couldn't do it by myself. And, you couldn't have done it by yourself. We all need each other to be able to make that thing work. And so I think it's important to dismantle the hierarchy that we've created in this industry because it's bullshit and it's nonsense and it doesn't mean anything. It's not necessary, but we've created it and it's been created. And we follow it blindly without actually considering what the damage is because of it. And I always said that when I got to a position in my career where I could shift that dynamic, I would. And so when I was given the opportunity, I, stepped up as much as I could and did what I felt was the right thing to do in that situation. And I hope it worked.
I mean, I think so because whenever I bump into someone that worked on the show, you don't ever hear of like, when you work on some shows, the first thing you're like, oh, that was a shit show or whatever. No one
Mm,
ever says that. They say, look at, Nicholas had a barbecue a few weekends ago, and a few of us who worked on the show, and it was like genuine hugs and
yeah,
happiness.
it
And
was lovely.
you're like, remember that time we da 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 da, we were all this. And I mean, we were in like an old prison lots of the times, in
Yeah,
this old prison out in Staten Island. It was cold. Trust and believe, when you see a show and it's wintertime, there
yeah.
was the 2 actors or 3 actors that you see on the camera, but there's about 100 of us surrounded,
Oh
freezing
yeah,
outside along with them.
oh
So
yeah.
it's like, sometimes we're in brutal conditions. It's cold, it's raining, and
Mhm.
we still had such a good time.
We did, and we looked after each other. I mean, I think that's another thing is that, being the number one on a show, it's been expected that you have a certain status above everybody else. On paper, you may do, but actually in real life, you don't. And so, do you remember that? I was talking about this the other day. Do you remember the incident when I turned up to lunch at catering and there was nowhere for me to sit? So I found a seat anywhere, and it happened to be on the SA table. And I sat down, and they kind of looked at me as if, what am I doing here? And I said, do you mind if I sit here? And they said, well, of course you can sit here. So I sat there, had lunch with them. It was great.
And now you say SA, those are background.
Supporting artists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see, so Nicholas is from London,
I am.
and verbiage is different. So an essay, which is
Background artist.
a background artist, we call them just background. So it's just like background. And background in the hierarchy, they're like kind of at the bottom, so they eat last.
Which is disgusting. But we'll come back to that. So then the next day, somebody in production put it upon themselves to write my name on a piece of paper, or print my name on a piece of paper and put it on a table that was just for me. And I told them, under no condition are you to ever do that again. Because it makes me look like I've requested somewhere to sit because I don't want to sit with these people,
Yeah.
which has never been the case. And so I never sat on that table, and I sat exactly where I sat the day before. But these things happen without you knowing it. So a lot of the time when you hear stories about, people in the public eye doing things like that, it doesn't come from them, because that never came from me. And it's sometimes really hard to navigate, and those things, because I think I ranted about it to you in the dressing room, because
Yeah.
I was so mad.
And you didn't understand, like, because you guys do things differently than how we do things here.
Mm.
So when I was explaining to you, like, this is kind of how it is here, you was like, oh no.
Yeah, but people, even the background eating last,
I mean,
that I just don't understand that. It's not necessary.
it's so crazy. But if we didn't learn anything from the strike, when we were on strike, everyone was on strike.
Exactly.
No one was getting paid.
Yep.
So that hierarchy that everyone thinks that is so important meant nothing, because no one was
Yeah.
getting paid. That you have people who were, everyone was losing things. People lost homes, people lost lives, like,
Yeah.
everyone. It wasn't just, background. It was also producers
Oh, it was
and
everybody.
everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone was affected. So if we didn't learn that from the strike, at the end of the day, it's like a fancy car. And for a fancy car to work, there's all little parts. Even the part that you press to make the button go down is
Yeah.
important for the car. Every part is important for the car to run. So why would you make one part more important than the other? Because you
Absolutely.
need every piece.
And I keep getting in trouble over here, because if I see background waiting to eat when I come in, I tell them to eat. And I say, if you get in trouble, tell them to come and see me. And no one ever comes to see me, because no one wants to upset me. And you just go, what? How have we created a thing? The food is laid out. The background is sat over there, sitting, waiting until cast and crew and production, the execs, have eaten first, and they have to eat last. No, I find it, it's disgusting,
crazy.
and it's something that has to be dismantled, in this industry. The sense of hierarchy, and I'm more important than you, so I get to eat first. It's even things like queuing up for catering. The PAs. Oh, always kind of dumbstruck when I say, no, I'm going to wait in line. Well, you can go to the front, but why am I going to go to the front? I get driven to work and driven home every night. The crew drive themselves to work every day. They're there before I get there and they're there after I leave. What right do I have to jump the queue at lunchtime so that I can eat before them?
Listen, a lot of people, they think they're more important.
It makes no sense, and I find it appalling. Really, it angers me. It really does anger me.
No, I know you. That's one thing you did always. If you did say something about something, it was always about that. Even because if there's background children, they have to wait, and that's even crazier.
Awful, awful. But I think it's something that we're in control of, and it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't have to be that way. It's a very small fix that, we can implement these things. But I think the more people that speak up, the more something will be done. But we have to action these things. We can't just sit and talk about them.
Yeah, and it has to come from the number ones.
It does.
The number ones, the number twos, they have to say something because I'm just the wardrobe supervisor.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to hold on
Well,
to
you're
my
not,
job.
and again, you're not just the wardrobe supervisor, and that's the thing. But we get into the mindset of thinking we're just, it's because that's how we're made to feel. But it's not that way. So we have to actually dismantle that and have the value ourselves that we're not given. And that's why I try and conduct myself the way I do, because everybody needs to feel valued.
No, that is true.
Think about how when you don't feel valued, how that feels. But then when you do feel valued, how that feels.
Yeah, it makes you come to work. It makes you want to work harder.
So if you could feel valued every day when you go to work, how much better would you work?
Yeah, I would. You would just do everything.
That's right.
I mean, I'm that way now because I'm just a person of integrity, and I try to conduct myself in that way because I do right, and I do want to have a show, and I feel like you reap what you sow. I'm on these shows, and I make sure that I give 100% of myself. I'm a person of integrity. I make sure I work hard because when I have my show, I want people to give that to me.
And I can contest to that.
Yeah.
Or else we wouldn't have the relationship that we have. And, it wouldn't have worked the way it worked over those years. And the show finished, 4 years ago?
Dag, was that long ago?
Yeah. Yeah, it finished during...
Dag, it doesn't even seem that long. You're right, because I've been on FBI Most Wanted for 3 seasons.
That's right.
Wow, the time goes by so fast.
It does.
So let me ask you this, Nicholas.
Go ahead.
So I met Nicholas's father, his sister. I love your sister.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing. She is pretty amazing. She's my best friend.
Now I get it.
She's my personal assistant now.
I know.
Yeah.
Which is perfect. But
it's perfect
she's
for
funny.
me.
But they also, when you meet someone's family, then you start to see, okay, now I understand why this person is how they are.
Yeah.
How did you get to where you are right now? The person that you are now, how did you get to this person?
It's taken a lot of hard work. My father has always taught me to value myself and have integrity. And so the one thing I learned in navigating my position in this industry was that my no is more important than my yes. Or in some cases, it's as important as my yes. So I never took work for the money. I never worked for money. I worked because I wanted that role. Whether it paid very well or it paid shit, it didn't make a difference to me. Mm-hmm. Is that role important to me? Can I be a better actor for taking that role? Does that role scare me? I mean, I had a 2-year apprenticeship where, you get an agent and you do the jobs that come your way so you can feel out that. But I gave myself a certain amount of time. And after that time, I then started going, okay, no, I don't want to do one episode of a show anymore. And I don't want to play the drug dealer anymore. I did it. It has its place. I'm not against it. But if you're going to give me that role, give me 3 episodes now and give me a story, because that's not the sum of all the parts. No one is just a one-dimensional character, but, you can create those things. Great. I don't want to do them anymore. And so while I was navigating my way through the industry and working less, but when I worked, it was good work, I had the support of my family. My father has always said, this industry is really hard. I know that it's unpredictable. and there's no job security, therefore no financial security. So he said, you ever need anything, you come to me, you don't go to anybody else. And he's always been that way. And so I had the support of my family. My sister, she's my personal assistant now, and she has been for 3, maybe 4 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been my personal assistant in the
Forever.
background forever. From when I was 12 and I started working,
Mhm.
she was always doing stuff for me. Now I can just, give that back. And actually, she's got a job that I hope
Yeah.
she enjoys. I mean, we laugh too much for her not to enjoy it. So
Yeah, your sister's
that's good.
funny.
No, she's
She
amazing.
is hilarious.
And so having that support of, and my friends as well, that aren't in the industry, they've always been a champion of mine, even when I wasn't a champion of myself, which, comes and goes as it does. But they've always been behind me right from day one. And going back to what, we originally started talking about was friendship. And, I'm friends with my family members. I'm friends with my sister. I'm friends with my dad. I'm friends with, my uncle. And we are family, but there's a solid friendship there. And move that away from family. When I need to shop for them, I'm there. And when I need them to shop for me, they're there. And that's been a real cornerstone in having me get to where I've gotten to now, and will continue to be, to get to where I'm going, because I'm not done yet.
Of course not. I mean, I forget. It's funny because we speak ever so often. I think of you all the time, so I'll hit you up. I'm like, I need to speak to you tomorrow. Because with Nicholas, this is the thing with Nicholas. You could call Nicholas. He's not going to answer, depending what mood he's in. But for me to get Nicholas on the phone, I have to be just bossy. I need you to call me now.
Yeah.
Is something happened? No. Call me. Hi, Nicholas. I need to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Because then I could tell what mood he's in. Sometimes he won't pick up the phone because he's busy or he's working. But if it's
My
too
phone's always on
long,
silent though too. So.
I'm like, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I need to hear your voice. And then I forget sometimes that he's in these movies that I watch or these shows that I watch. And I just remember, I'm like, wow, look at Nicholas. You know how you forget? Because now we're
Yeah.
friends. Sometimes I forget. And I'll bump into a show that I know that you told me that you did. But then I watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's not him. So that's really acting. Especially when Nicholas takes on, when you did For Life, you played Isaac Wright, who was from Queens.
That's right.
So he was American. When you play a role that has a dialect, you maintain that dialect
24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, until the job is done.
Yeah. So it becomes, you forget, like literally I forgot. And then after For Life was done, he's British again. And I'm like, hello, what? Who's that?
Yeah, it kind of freaks people out. And it's, sometimes people don't understand it. But what a lot of people don't realize, as well, as I went to an American international school when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for 4 years. And it was 100% US faculty, 80% US alumni. And the 20% of us were from the Philippines, the UK, Australia, wherever. So we had these weird accents. So rather than stand out, what the 20% did, every single one of them, was become American in the way that they sounded.
Wow.
So for me, when I switched to American, it doesn't actually feel alien at all. And I don't have to think about it. So I can stay in it 24 hours a day, and it just feels like going back to being a child, because that's what I had to do to assimilate.
See, we don't know why we go through things when we go through things.
Exactly.
But look at how, people forget. Like I literally, we all did forget, because the whole time. And then when we're at the rap party, we're like, who is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember doing the you were there for the screening, right?
Yeah.
And we got up on stage and people were asking me questions, and the whole audience were like, hold on, what? They'd just seen an episode of the show. And then, whenever I do press, like I'm doing this now, and I've turned up as me out of, voice. And it was quite interesting how people couldn't seem to fathom that I wasn't from where I was from.
Because also too, like me being someone who's traveled, there's different dialects of remember we had this whole conversation, because I feel like you speak very to me proper, and then there's like slang.
There is.
If you're not there, you don't know.
Yeah.
Because when I'm like, oh, He speaks very proper, I
Yeah.
guess, what do you call it? English.
Yeah.
And then there's
Well, we call it RP, received pronunciation.
received pronunciation.
Yeah.
So you pronounce everything.
Apparently so, yeah.
I don't
As
know.
opposed to being, a Cockney.
That's
Yeah.
that's it.
Or
Where
having
it's like
slang.
having everything just kind of run together.
Yeah.
That's dope though. But it is funny because people are like, oh my gosh, Nicholas, I love his accent. I love his accent. I love his accent. That's my mom too.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, to me, I'm like, I don't like it. I'm like, I have to listen too hard.
Yeah.
When you're English, well, American, it's like, that's why we go back and forth. I'm like, wow, wait a minute. And then when I sit with your whole family, like last week when I was with your whole family, I have to listen really hard so I catch all the all the words. And then you guys are Jamaican.
Oh,
So then
yeah.
there's the mix of that in there.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, I gotta listen hard.
Yeah, it was funny when I was playing a Jamaican in a show for the UK. Sometime, was it last year? Yeah. And I spent the whole time in a Jamaican accent. And the cast were like, I need to hear your real voice. Because they just didn't. And then when it was finished and they heard it, they were like, whoa, hold on. No, we can't understand. How are you? Because people forget. I start the job and I'm like this, and then I'll go into the job, but they just,
Yeah,
they completely
when I first
forget.
met you, I totally forgot.
Yeah.
I totally forgot. So let me ask you this, right? When you're working, when you have people like your personal assistant who is your sister,
Yeah.
and then like me, I worked with you on For Life as your costumer. But when people work with you, or people who would like to work with you, or maybe work in the entertainment industry, what are qualities that you say that people should kind of work on having, or that you look for in a person that you want to work with you?
First and most important thing is be kind to everybody. I can't be around people who are unkind and don't treat people equally. I mean, I think that's how the industry works best from my viewpoint. It doesn't cost anything to be kind and to speak to people on a level. Don't undermine anybody, always make people feel valued. There's an actor that I worked with who I was never a fan of his work. And I would, you always question, how does that person get so much work and how are they such a huge star? They're terrible. Then I got a chance to work with him and I got it. He is the kindest.
Really?
The nicest person that I've ever had on set.
Really?
Yeah.
Besides you. Because I say that about you. I think you were the nicest and
thank
kindest
you.
person ever.
Thank you.
On set.
And so I understood. I would be around him all the time. I would have him on set all the time. I would work with him without thinking about it tomorrow. But I was never a fan of his work. And he understands acting. He works really hard in the scenes. He'll, break it down and we'll discuss it and he'll deliver it. And although I'm honestly still not a big fan of his work, I understand and I see it differently now. Because he's just the kindest, sweetest person for somebody at his level who doesn't have to be technically, being kind and being nice and being accommodating and being open and being genuine means everything. And I think in an industry where that's not a given, it's even more important when you do find people like that.
Yeah. So kindness, and what else?
You don't want your job to be hard work, but you need to work hard at it. And this industry is hard, as you know. It can be grueling, long hours. You're dealing with a lot of personalities that can be tricky. We know a few, don't we, Mia?
Yes.
And that can be draining.
That's hard. And that's really hard.
That can be draining and that can be exhausting.
Because people can be mean.
Oh, yeah. And people were mean.
For no reason. And that's the confusing part. It's just like...
Because it's their own stuff they're dealing with.
Yeah, but
and
it's like,
they don't know how to compartmentalize that and turn up for work. So that seeps into their relationships and the way they interact at work, as we know. But when you're around people like that, and when you have to deal with energies like that, what's important is that you don't lose yourself because of their shit.
Yeah.
and that you can still turn up and work hard and spend time with those people and compartmentalize it and block it off and still be great at your job and still put in the long hours. You know, it's a privilege what we do. We turn up to work, we get paid quite well compared to most people to create illusions for an audience to believe in and to allow them to escape. Because like I said before, every single one of us is working to make sure that whatever's on that screen is as good as it can be.
Yep.
And that's an honor. That's a privilege we get to go to nice places. We meet some really interesting people. We get special treatment. We get gifted things. And I think you can never take that for granted. You have to be humble to that and understand that every single person in the industry is in a very, very, very small percentage of people that love what they do and turn up to work and get paid to do their hobby.
Yeah, and you have to love what you do because
Oh,
we
yeah.
are at work I'm at work. I tell people all the time now that I'm a supervisor, I have to be to work. I'm at work anywhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I am up at 2:30. Those are go to the bathroom hours. That's your first
That's
night,
right.
your first dream or your first let go in the night.
Yeah.
And then you go back to bed. I'm getting up to go to work. And by the time people get to work, I don't work 5 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you have to love what you do.
Yeah.
And you have to be prepared to work hard.
It's why I'm trying to work on really not complaining of like, oh, I got to get up or, just all the little things that you complain about that you don't realize that you're complaining about. It's like God blessing you with something
That's right.
and you saying it's not good enough.
Yeah. That's why
because I have to do something.
You hardly ever see me complain. And when I do, it's because there is a genuine complaint.
Yeah.
And I don't complain often. I try not to complain as much as possible. I will endure, I will put up with, because I know I've got a lot of friends who get out of bed and don't want to go to work. They hate their bosses. They hate the work that they're doing. They hate the hours that they work. They hate the amount of time they don't have off. All these types of things. But, it's transactional. You work, you get money.
Yeah.
I love my job. It's the best job in one of the biggest industries in the whole world. And you couldn't tear me away from it if you tried. So I spring out of bed every morning, even at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock when we have to get out. And again, you come to work with that energy that, you love it and we're lucky and we're privileged. Hopefully that energy spreads and people can appreciate that. And, it's infectious. Mood is infectious. If you're in a shit mood, you can ruin everybody's day.
No, that is true.
If you're in a great mood, that energy can spark everybody's day and make them feel brighter. And, spreading a little kindness, it seems cliche and whatever, but it really does make a difference.
No, it does. I mean, even how like when I go on a job, people who I make friends with are Transpo and Crafty.
Yeah.
Those become my best friends because I need to get where I need to get to. I usually forget things. We always got to run back and forth. And I want all my snacks to be good.
Yeah. That's important.
It's like, and it's just simple things of learning someone's name.
Yeah.
You know who else was like that? That Regina King.
Oh, she was
another person. Like she knew everyone on set's name.
Fantastic.
Everybody.
I love that.
And she would go into these deep scenes and she would come back out and be right back to speaking to people and remembering people's names. The energy on that set was pretty cool too when we did 7 Seconds whenever she was around. And it just made everyone, because we were in the snow, it was cold.
Yep.
And if your attitude is good, it kind of just springs off into everyone else. And you just don't, you don't feel good saying, oh.
Yeah.
Because everyone else around you is like, what's wrong with you? Like, we're working.
Even something little like just remembering to say thank you and being appreciative of the things that people do, the smallest things. Those things make a massive, massive difference. But you have so many people who take it for granted because it's easy, because the industry is designed for you to be spoiled if, you are so inclined to be.
Yeah, they don't even want you to get your own tea. No, you got to fight to say, no, I'll get my own.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but that's how they set it up. Do everything they need. And it's not, sometimes it's to spoil, but sometimes it's also too because They know if they send someone to get your tea, that's going to take 5 minutes. If you go get your tea, that may take 15 minutes. So also too, in their minds, they're thinking in a way of like, if I could get him to sit here this whole time and everything is brought to him, then there's no way for him to disappear, and then I have to look for him, or now he's doing this or
I would
doing
rather
that.
be given the chance to take the 5 minutes and it not be 15, and for them to trust that when I say I'm gonna go and come back, I go and come back rather than someone get it for me.
Listen, I get it. But I've also been on set many a times waiting for an actor like, oh my God, guys,
I
we
know.
just want to go home.
Which I think is disrespectful and terrible.
You know,
I heard of one actor got upset because of a fan one day and then said they didn't want to come into work because they felt exposed and vulnerable. And so everybody that had turned up for work, that had got up out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, had to reconfigure their whole day, had a Saturday added to their day when they've got kids and all this kinds of stuff. And now, I'm not saying that that person genuinely didn't feel they couldn't go to work. I get it. But when there are lots of other people and you're a number one and it affects all of those people, there are certain things you suck up and you deal with. How do you expect to be an actor and not have attention from the public when you're at a certain level? It doesn't make sense. It comes with the territory. You know what that feels like. It, bugs me sometimes when, people are videoing you and you're in a restaurant or, all this. It's horrible. It's horrible. But am I going to ruin everybody's evening because of that? No. Why should I? I know that's something that might happen.
And it comes with the territory.
It comes with the territory, so you have to deal with it. But to do that, I think is beyond what I call selfish.
Yeah, that's extreme.
Because it's not fair. It's not considerate. But again, with the industry is designed that you can get away with that, and it be okay, because they'll accommodate you and they'll cancel the day because you feel because you're not feeling. And
it's like being rewarded for bad behavior.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a hard industry to work in, and I always tell people when they ask or when, it's funny because now my sister is a stunt actor and she's taking acting classes, and she's an actress just in general. My sister can enter into a room and like everybody. Me, I'm feeling everybody out. If I don't like you, I'm staying away. She literally could come into a room and she'll pick up the same things that I pick up, but she doesn't care. I'm like, Lauren, that's acting. You just go in a room and you just act however you want to act for, that's acting.
Yeah.
Me, I'm like, nah, I don't even want to waste my time talking to that person. I don't feel that. Nope, I don't like her. Nope, I don't like him. I'm like, in my mind, I'm doing that. And then there might be some person I gravitate to. And then that's where I'm like, oh, that person's interesting. Let me go talk to them. But it takes me a minute to fill out a room. Yeah. My sister could bounce through a room and talk to everybody.
Yeah, not me. I'm the same as you.
Yeah. So as we're about to wrap up, I wanted to ask, this is a question that I ask everyone. Mm-hmm. If you could do one thing and not fail, what would it be?
Continually be a better version of myself. That's the one thing I don't want to fail at, is achieving being a better version of myself on a day-to-day basis.
Do you feel like that happens?
I go to sleep every night and wake up every morning with the intent of being the best version of myself for myself and everybody else around me. I don't always get it right. And I sometimes get it really wrong and I make mistakes. But where I can make amends, I do. And where I can control not being the worst version, I do. Do I think it works was your question? Yes. Yeah. And I try not to fail at that every day. Every single day. I suffer mental health issues quite badly sometimes, as you've witnessed several occasions. And in those moments when you feel confused and vulnerable and scared and unplugged from the world and quite lost, depressed, suicidal, it's hard to navigate your emotions and it's hard to hold everything in. I'm not one who shouts and swears and is violent or angry or aggressive, but the feelings are there. But you have to push that down. You have to, because of certain traumas that I've had, I don't want to be that person, because that means I'm like someone else, and I don't want to be like that someone else. But in those moments when you are vulnerable and you're scared, it's really hard to know whether you're actually managing it properly or not. And what I've realized is switching off and going cold and distancing myself, which is my self-protection, can be just as harmful as being aggressive and violent and angry. And I've had to really find a way of navigating that so that I communicate and people understand that that's what's going on and it's not you, and this is where I'm at because of this is how I'm feeling. And to manage that so it doesn't seep into someone else's, consciousness and trigger their stuff.
Yeah.
And I really hope that I don't fail at doing that.
I mean, I think you're a pretty dope person.
Thank you.
And I've met you from when I met you to now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you are the kindest. And I say that all the time. I'm like, Nicholas is nice to everybody, but you don't like everybody.
That's true.
And that is how you know that you're kind. Because we're friends, I know. I'm like, ooh, she got on his nerves. Or I could feel that someone's getting on his nerves. And I'll be like, all right, come on, Nicholas, let's go. We got to go. Or something like I pick up on that.
Yeah.
And then I could pull you out of that.
That's why I said that I couldn't have done that show without you.
Listen, I'll be like, ooh, she's getting on his nerves.
Yeah.
Nicholas, we got to go do something. Or like, I would just pick up on it. Or leave him alone, or don't even his assistant at the time didn't pick up on it. I'd be like, we not going in there right now.
Yeah.
Oh, but he doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
He needs a minute.
Yeah.
Or, oh, he's in a bad mood. Okay, cool. He's in a bad mood. I wouldn't talk to Nicholas until lunch. I don't care if he's in a bad mood. He's not. I didn't do nothing to him.
No, exactly.
Sir, you want to put this shirt on? But you are going to get dressed because you're going to have to pack that mood up because you got a lot of people out there waiting for you to perform.
And a lot of that mood had nothing to do with anybody but me and how I was feeling about me.
Yeah.
And things in life. But,
and sometimes I would remind you, I'd be like, you wanted this job, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so get dressed. Let's go. I don't care that you're mad about something that...
And that's the beauty of friendship, real friendship, is that you want people to call you out and you can be called out. And again, realizing that it's nothing personal.
Yeah, because I knew when you was being a brat and I knew when you was being like, when you were really in a mood or if, and I could pick that up. And if you were being like, because sometimes I could be a brat and I need people, Mia, stop. And it's like, Nicholas, you're mad because they changed some lines. All right, you first of all, you are an actor. That's what actors do. Act. Come on.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, fine. And then you would give a great performance. And then it was whatever you was mad about or in your mood, you forget about it. You didn't remember it.
A lot of it's insecurity. You don't know if you're doing well enough, and you're in your feels about, whether you're worthy of that position and so on and so forth, and the amount of encouragement that you gave me in certain moments when I needed it, and the pep talks, and sometimes the pep talks are like a backhander to the face because like I said, I don't always get it right, and sometimes you need those people in your life to give you a tap on the shoulder and just remind you. And that was I'll forever be grateful for that. I'm still grateful for it. We're not even working together.
Listen, you taught me a lot too, because I was in a season of my life of forgiveness. So
I remember.
I got put in a lot of weird positions. Like that was a hard job because he wanted me there. So when you get requested by the number one, now you got Target on your back. It was like when I worked with 50 because now you're the closest thing to the one thing that everybody wants to be close to. And I'm really just here doing my job. And then it's like everyone wants to be his friend. So now they're being my friend to be his friend.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't like you.
A lot of people did. A lot of people. Remember?
Yeah.
I was leered at. I never had someone leer at me in my life. I didn't even know what leering was until that day. And I was like, Nicholas, I got leered at.
Yeah.
But he protected me on that job. And because he protected me on that job, you want tea? I knew how he liked his tea. I made sure his tea was made right. If I wasn't making it, if his assistant wasn't making it, if someone was filling in, because it was those little things. His tea got to be right. There's not enough lemons in there. You got to put more honey. Because I knew that, those little things. So because it wasn't my job, but I knew, okay, that's going to make his day go easier. That's going to make my day go easier. And then we get out of here.
Yeah, and I
But
think we
they
looked
didn't. That
after
was
each
a
other
hard
too.
job.
You
Ooh,
know,
that was a hard job.
yeah,
I
it
had to
was.
forgive a lot of people on that job.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And it's important when you're working that closely with each other that you look after each other.
Yeah.
You know, I hope there were moments when I looked after you.
Of course, you looked after
You
me
know.
that whole job, and that's why I looked after you in that kind of way.
And it's that you know, every relationship, every friendship, every family ship, whatever you want to call it, that two-way street, regardless of the dynamic,
yeah,
has to be that way.
yeah.
You know, I'm like that with my sister. And people go to me, "Why? You know, how's it working with your sister?" I said, "It's fantastic. I trust no one more than I trust her."
My sister was my best assistant when
yeah,
she worked with me.
There you go.
We would get into it. She would get fired every day, but I
Yeah.
knew she had my best interest at heart.
And if I make sure that she's okay and she's feeling comfortable and she's taken care of, in return she does the same thing for me. And so it's that transaction, regardless of the dynamic, you kind of have to. And this is where it comes back to: it doesn't cost anything to be kind.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything because sometimes I get her breakfast because she's my sister.
Yeah.
And she's also my friend. And she's also someone I care about. And I've got 2 legs and 2 arms. I can get my own breakfast.
And if she's working on something and you're going to get breakfast, just get the breakfast.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just easy. It's like that's not my job. I'm not getting breakfast. You know, people just get caught up in the. And you're right. It's just if you're kind, it's not even a second thought.
No.
So we need to promote kindness. Kindness.
More kindness, more compassion, more empathy in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I think, you know, there's no better time to start than now.
I started practicing. Remember I told you the other day, I said, I'm starting to like people again. I'm practicing like when I'm, you know, smiling at people to get a smile back or, you know, just to see.
And even if you don't, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
Because you're not in control of how people are going to respond.
No.
But you're in control of how you can respond to that.
And if I smile at 10 people and I get one back, I'm like, okay, that worked. Yeah. Nicholas, I want to thank you.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for coming. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation between 2 good friends. You know, I didn't really get into who he was and what he does because it doesn't matter. It's Nicholas Pinnock, and he is my friend who's also a big actor. So check out things that he's been on. Book of Clarence, For Life. What did I first started seeing you on?
Top Boy.
Oh yes, Top Boy. What else? What else have you worked on real quick?
Criminal.
Oh yeah,
Marcella. Goodness. Django. Oh, you like that?
Oh, I love Django. Yeah. That is one of my Django. Check that out. But Clarence. I mean, just you're here now working on a show.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So this is my friend, and I'm very grateful for him, and I'm so thankful for everyone who watches and who, you know, click likes and subscribe. So do that if you haven't, and we'll check you out on the next episode of New and In Between. Peace. Hey everyone, it's your girl Mia Quinn Maddox, and this is New and In Between.